traveled around East Texas, you've probably seen it, even if you don't know what it is. We're talking about an invasive plant that covers trees and fences called kudzu. It's so prolific that plant experts are warning you to be on the lookout.
Alabama. A quiet state in the American South, long overlooked by the scientific community and dismissed as a backwater experiment hub. But hidden deep in its forests and swamplands, something extraordinary was brewing. Something that would make even the most skeptical researchers question everything they thought they knew. For decades, this method was laughed at, ridiculed as folklore or pseudoscience. Yet now, whispers are spreading through labs and university halls. They were wrong. Dead wrong. The subject? Kudzu. A plant known for its invasive nature, mocked for swallowing entire towns, strangling trees, and overtaking highways. People called it a nuisance, a menace. Something to be eradicated at all costs. But in one secluded Alabama county, a small group of scientists and local pioneers discovered a method involving this relentless vine that defied every conventional rule. They didn't just harness its growth. They turned it into a tool that could manipulate energy, reshape matter, and unlock biological secrets that most experts had assumed were untouchable. And when the results were first revealed, the world didn't just raise an eyebrow, they recoiled in disbelief. This changes everything. It began with an experiment no one took seriously. Volunteers in a barely funded lab strapped kudzu vines to simple mechanical devices designed to test tension and elasticity. At first, nothing happened. The vine grew, twisted, and expanded just as nature intended. But then, the impossible occurred. Sensors picked up fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, patterns in energy that contradicted decades of botanical and physical research. Instruments started recording data that didn't match any known biological or chemical processes. Something inside the kudzu was responding, intelligently, almost deliberately, to external stimuli. The team tried to contain it, thinking it was a glitch. But further tests confirmed the shocking truth. Kudzu was capable of producing measurable effects far beyond its botanical definition. Word leaked, of course. Scientists from around the country poured into Alabama, eager to witness the phenomenon. They scoffed openly, dismissing it as trickery, lab error, or an elaborate hoax. But when the first full-scale demonstration occurred, even the harshest critics were silenced. A kudzu laden apparatus, when activated with the county's proprietary method, produced an energy field strong enough to distort light, interfere with electronic equipment, and in some cases affect human perception in ways no one could explain. Researchers described a sensation of weightlessness, of time slowing, of seeing patterns in reality itself that defied comprehension. This wasn't just botany anymore. It was something that seemed to straddle the line between science and phenomenon, between biology and something else entirely. Scientists are horrified. The implications were immediate and terrifying. If this method could be replicated, it would overturn fundamental laws of energy conservation, rewrite textbooks, and challenge centuries of established science. Institutions began quietly sending internal memos, "Do not discuss publicly." Containment protocols in effect. The kudzu method wasn't merely an oddity, it was a potential paradigm shift. And certain powers did not want the public to know what was unfolding in a small Alabama lab. Yet the local pioneers refused to stop. Driven by something beyond curiosity, perhaps an instinctive understanding of the kudzu's potential, they expanded their experiments. By integrating the vines with rudimentary mechanical amplifiers, they could magnify the energy effects exponentially. Instruments recorded bursts that resembled miniature auroras, light patterns dancing in synchronization with the plant's growth rhythm. The team noted that these effects were not random. The kudzu seemed to respond to human intent, almost as if the plant itself could sense desires and react accordingly. And when volunteers attempted to focus on specific outcomes, moving objects, changing temperatures, affecting electronic circuits, the results were consistently stunning. The scientific establishment dismissed this as coincidence at first, but with hundreds of controlled repetitions, data sets too vast to ignore, and anomalous readings defying every conventional explanation, skepticism began to crack. Peer-reviewed journals refused to publish the findings, citing lack of theoretical framework, but leaks started appearing. Confidential footage released by insiders showed kudzu vines writhing with energy, glowing faintly under infrared light, and responding to stimuli in ways that made researchers question their own senses. One scientist, speaking under condition of anonymity, confessed, "I've spent 30 years studying plants, energy, and physics. I don't understand it. I don't even know how to describe it. And yet I can't deny what I've seen." And still, the public remained mostly oblivious. Headlines ignored Alabama's breakthroughs. Social media mocked the idea. Memes portrayed kudzu as nothing more than a fast-growing nuisance. But behind the laughter, a quiet revolution was taking place. The method, initially written off as absurd, had become a phenomenon too potent to conceal. Early adopters in Alabama began testing the effects outside laboratories, on farms, in abandoned warehouses, and even in small communities. Each time, results were more astonishing than the last: accelerated growth, controlled energy bursts, inexplicable bioresponses, and, most disturbingly, subtle shifts in perception among those exposed. People reported visions, intuitive leaps, and heightened senses. The phenomenon was spreading silently, and no one outside the state seemed to realize the scale of what was happening. Experts, when pushed to comment, could only offer uneasy statements. "It's unprecedented," one botanist admitted. "If this is verified, it will require a total reevaluation of plant physiology and energy systems." Engineers, physicists, and even government researchers began arriving in secret, documenting what they could while trying to understand why kudzu, of all things, had become the vessel for something so radically new. Some described it as a form of living technology, others as a natural amplifier of unseen forces. Whatever it was, Alabama's kudzu method was no longer a laughingstock. It had become a force that threatened to rewrite the very rules of nature. And yet, for every step forward, new mysteries emerged. Why did the kudzu react only under certain conditions? Could it communicate? Was it intelligent? Or was this something even more profound? Something beyond comprehension, reaching into the fabric of reality itself? Each experiment generated more questions than answers, drawing in those desperate to uncover the truth. And with each revelation, one thing became undeniable: the people who had laughed at Alabama's kudzu method were now silent. Alabama's secret experiments unveiled. By the time word of the kudzu method began slipping beyond county borders, a select group of insiders had already witnessed effects that would make seasoned scientists tremble. The experiments had evolved far beyond initial tests with energy fields. Researchers discovered that, under precise conditions, the kudzu could manipulate not just energy, but the very environment around it. Temperature fluctuations, shifts in humidity, and even the subtle bending of light were all observed in proximity to controlled kudzu clusters. Devices designed to measure quantum phenomena registered anomalies that defied all known physical laws, hinting at a connection between the vine and forces previously considered untouchable. No mainstream media coverage existed, at least not officially. Yet through quiet channels, photographs and video footage began circulating. Footage showed kudzu vines glowing faintly under ultraviolet light, moving almost deliberately, sometimes forming patterns that resembled geometric shapes, only to collapse back into organic chaos moments later. Volunteers reported strange sensations, sudden clarity of thought, memories resurfacing with intense vividness, and a heightened sense of intuition. One participant, in whispered testimony, revealed, "It's as if the kudzu can see what you're thinking, almost like it knows you before you know yourself." Experts dismissed such claims as psychosomatic effects, yet laboratory sensors captured measurable biofeedback that suggested otherwise. They don't want you to know. The implications were alarming enough to trigger internal investigations. Certain government departments, normally skeptical of botanical phenomena, began quietly monitoring Alabama's experiments. Memorandums marked top secret circulated, warning of the potential for misuse, instability, and public panic. The Kudzu, once considered a nuisance plant, had become a potential vector for forces that could disrupt electronics, communications, and even psychological stability. And still, the local scientists persisted, driven by curiosity, ambition, and perhaps a sense of destiny. As the experiments progressed, researchers noticed a disturbing pattern. The Kudzu responded most powerfully to human observation. The more people watched and focused on the vines, the more intense the energy fields became. Instruments fluctuated wildly in response to collective attention, producing results that no isolated tests could replicate. The phenomenon suggested that the plant's effects were not just biological, they were interactive, reactive, and dependent on consciousness itself. Some scientists proposed a radical hypothesis. Could the Kudzu, in some unknowable way, be intelligent? The idea was met with derision at first, then with careful consideration, and eventually silent terror. Volunteers who spent extended periods near the experimental Kudzu reported long-term effects. Sleep patterns altered, dreams became hyper-real, and some claimed to experience visions of events that had not yet occurred. Skeptics assumed these accounts were fabrications or exaggerations, yet continuous monitoring revealed subtle physiological changes, neural oscillations shifting in sync with the vine's energy pulses, heart rates fluctuating in patterns that mirrored the plant's growth cycles, and unexpected electromagnetic activity that could not be attributed to any conventional source. This was no longer a simple botanical anomaly. It was a convergence of biology, physics, and consciousness, all focused through an organism long dismissed as invasive and insignificant. Silence fell across the scientific community. By the third year of experimentation, the world beyond Alabama remained largely unaware. The broader scientific community had initially ridiculed the method, labeling it absurd. But leaks began to stir a quiet panic. Emails between researchers expressed disbelief, fear, and a growing unease. If this is replicable, one physicist wrote, the consequences for our understanding of reality are unimaginable. I don't even know where to start. Laboratory logs revealed repeated failures to suppress the phenomenon, suggesting that attempts to control or contain the Kudzu only amplified its effects. Even basic environmental variables, light, sound, temperature, could trigger reactions that were unexpected and often extreme. Inside the labs, the atmosphere became tense. Certain staff members insisted that some results should never leave the room, fearing that public knowledge could lead to hysteria or exploitation. Others argued that the world had a right to see what had been discovered, but hesitation won out. The experiments were documented meticulously, every anomaly logged, every pulse of energy recorded. And yet, with each new breakthrough, more questions arose than answers. Could the Kudzu be a naturally occurring key to untapped energies? Was it merely a conduit, or was it an agent acting with intention? The implications were staggering, and the team's obsession deepened. Word spread in hushed tones beyond the county. Those who had witnessed the Kudzu firsthand were forever changed. Local residents who initially mocked the experiments now reported phenomena they could not explain. Flashing lights in the woods, objects moving without touch, and eerie hums resonating through the night became common stories. These accounts, though anecdotal, coincided with measured spikes in energy emissions recorded by scientists, suggesting a correlation that could not be dismissed. Alabama had become a focal point for a mysterious force, one that intertwined with human perception, environmental conditions, and biological activity. Meanwhile, attempts to replicate the method outside Alabama met with inconsistent results. Researchers from other states and countries found that the Kudzu's effects diminished without the precise techniques and environmental controls developed locally. Some hypothesized that the plant required a specific regional soil composition, water quality, or even subtle electromagnetic signatures unique to the area. Others speculated that the human element, the observers themselves, was an integral part of the process. In any case, the method remained elusive, guarded jealously by those who had uncovered its secrets. And as outsiders scratched their heads, Alabama's small team pressed forward. They conducted increasingly daring tests, integrating the kudzu with experimental devices designed to enhance energy resonance, sometimes producing localized phenomena that defied explanation. In one documented instance, a cluster of vines produced a pulse that distorted the perception of time in nearby volunteers. Clocks malfunctioned, electronic screens flickered, and even the researchers reported a disorienting sense that minutes stretched into hours. Attempts to record the phenomenon with conventional cameras captured nothing, yet sophisticated sensors revealed spikes in energy that rivaled natural lightning events. The scientific community, observing from a distance, oscillated between incredulity and dread. The kudzu method had become a symbol of unknown potential, something that could unlock unprecedented knowledge or unleash uncontrollable forces. As one anonymous insider warned, this isn't a plant anymore. It's something else entirely. And it's watching us as much as we're watching it. The secret that shook science. Alabama's kudzu method isn't a joke. It's a force no one can ignore. What was laughed at is now rewriting the rules of reality itself. And while the world remains unaware, the truth is clear. Those who mocked it first will never laugh again.